How many of these items did you list? Last week, as a class, we identified the 3 parts of an effective introduction. You need all 3 of these parts to have a stylish, memorable, and effective introduction. The first is the hook, an attention-grabbing strategy that engages the reader, and we're going to talk more about hooks coming up. The bridge, a group of sentences that smoothly shift the focus of the writing from the hook to the main topic of the essay. An effective bridge is perhaps the trickiest component of an engaging introduction. Based on the purpose, what you're writing about, there's not one sure way to do this, so we're going to also be working more on this. The thesis or claim statement is the third and final part of the introduction. It does not always have to be the last sentence, but this is often where we put it, and we keep it there until we feel really comfortable in writing a solid introduction, and then we might experiment with moving it around a little bit. The claim statement or thesis statement contains a subject and an opinion. Sometimes someone says a subject and a claim. They need to be an argument, and the essay will explain that in an informational one or provide the evidence to support it in an argument. As promised, we're going to talk a little bit more about the hook. The hook grabs the reader's attention and makes the reader want to read what's coming next. And there are many ways a writer can create the hook. Last week, 2 of the type of hooks that a number of students spoke about or wrote about was the startling statistic, fact, or rhetorical question. A lot of people just wrote question. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as a class later this week. So take a few minutes or a little while here to read over what the startling fact and statistic is defined as in an example, and also look at the rhetorical question, how it's defined in an example. And think about, is this what you had in mind when you talked about these or wrote about these last week? And then I want you to think about what other types of hooks you may have talked about last year, and in a moment you'll have a chance to write those down or type those in. Did you list any of these strategies for creating a hook? The personal story, the anecdote, the metaphor, unexpected claim, vivid description, humor. There's actually 2 more that we're going to talk about in the next slide. But this is not an exhaustive list. There are many ways. I've used dialogue before in writing a personal narrative, kind of a conversation going back and forth between my husband and I that led into something that I was going to write about. So there are other ways. We want to make sure that you have a solid set of tools, or strategies for doing this. And as new ideas come about, that's something we can talk about and work on. Please make sure you take a few minutes to read over all of these. You can pause it while it's on the screen and read over that. You will see this list again. Staccato and one word are 2 additional techniques or strategies for creating a hook, and they're typically not introduced until 8th grade. They can be tricky, like some of the others, just because you have to think very much so about not just the words you're choosing, but how you're going to follow up. What's the sentence that will bring to light the connection? It should never be a sentence that just contains the word or contains the words. It needs to really dig deeper than that. So please take some time to read over these, and hoping that at some point you will try one or both of these. The second part of the 3 of the introduction is the bridge. It's the pieces, the sentences that are going to connect the hook to the claim or the thesis. Some people talk about that's the background knowledge, that's the context that you're providing. But the bridge is a really good term to think of and visualize, because you are connecting these 2 points, and it's helping the reader to go from getting their attention, this broader idea, to now pinpointing exactly where the writer's going. The third and final part of an effective introduction is the claim statement or the thesis statement. The bridge, remember, is connecting the hook to this statement. And it should be a smooth transition. You should be drawing the reader along to this point where you make that statement that now establishes what the essay is going to be about. It establishes the organization, and it sheds this light on what's coming. And that's why I've kind of compared it to a flashlight. Not that you're completely in the dark with the introduction, but the hook, you're getting interested, you're getting background knowledge, but now where are we going? And that flashlight, that little hint of light, shows us where we're going. The details, all the really, really important pieces are going to be coming, but that thesis statement says, there's where you're going. Okay, so let's review the three parts that we need. The catchy introduction, attention-getting opening, the hook. It grabs the reader in. Then you need, the final part is that thesis or claim statement, and you'll see here it says topic sentence. We're going to be using the term thesis statement and claim statement when we're talking about that statement in an introductory paragraph that leads into the body of an essay. The topic sentences are going to be the sentences within the body, and we'll talk about that more. And then that part in the middle, that second part of the three, is the bridge. So we have the hook, the bridge, and the thesis or claim statement. On this slide is an example of an introductory paragraph. All three essential ingredients or parts that are needed for an effective introduction are highlighted. One is the hook, in this case a personal anecdote. Two is the bridge, and in this case it's explaining the process of changing point of view. It's connecting the personal anecdote to the claim statement. In three, the final sentence is the claim or thesis statement, but it uses two sentences to further develop that bridge into that final sentence. This slide is another example of an introductory paragraph that contains the structure needed. It has an attention-getting opening, or attention grabber, or the name we're focusing on, hook, as a question, talking about the calories a child needs versus how many are in a Burger King Whopper. The last sentence, fast food is harmful because it rapidly increases weight, causes high blood pressure, and leads to sluggishness, is the thesis or the claim statement. It clearly identifies what the reader should expect, and notice the three different colors indicate the three main ideas that you would find in that order in the body paragraph. In between the question and the thesis or claim statement are two sentences that further develop the idea of calories and fast food. On this last slide, I've identified three items that are part of a checklist. It's a checklist for writing an effective introductory paragraph. So you can use it while you're writing, use it to evaluate your own writing, or provide feedback to a classmate when you're peer conferencing with them on their introductory paragraphs. The hook is the first part of the checklist. You have to have a hook. It needs to be engaging, and it has to be connected to the content of what you're writing about. It can't just be a great, strong hook that has nothing to do with what you're writing about. Second, the bridge. The bridge is providing the necessary background information. It's going to help transition clearly and logically from the hook to the claim or the thesis. But remember, don't reveal too much information. That's going to be best served and saved for later in the body. And lastly, that thesis statement, remember, it establishes focus and informs the reader as to what is next. That's what a good thesis or claim statement is going to do.